Well, Russia launched another major drone attack on eastern Ukraine overnight. Nearly 50 people were wounded. Kyiv mayor says drones struck at least 12 spots across the city, damaging homes and cars. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is urging stronger support and, quote, real decisions from Ukraine's allies. The attacks come just days after the U.S. and Ukraine signed a rare earth minerals deal. The Secretary of State Marco Rubio is taking over the duties of the National Security Advisor as Mike Waltz gears up for his Senate confirmation hearing for U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. For more on this, let's bring in former Ambassador at Large and Coordinator for Counterterrorism, Nathan Sales, and former Special Assistant to the President and National Security Council Senior Director, Michael Allen. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this day.
Thanks for having us.
Michael, this move now of Secretary Rubio taking over both roles, the White House suggests it could be about 6 months now. How does that change the dynamic of the National Security Council and U.S. foreign policy?
Well, I guess at some level it makes it easier because you have fewer people to coordinate with, and you have the Secretary of State sort of in that key role at the White House advising the president. But I'm a little bit worried that too many national security duties are being invested in one person. So surely I know that Rubio is very capable, but at some point I hope they're going to build out a strong team so we can manage and support all the big diplomatic initiatives that President Trump has ongoing.
Yeah, Nathan, should they move to name a new national security advisor as quickly as possible? And, the White House is spinning this in a way, it's saying that Mike Waltz is given a promotion going to the UN, but that doesn't seem like the case, does it?
Well, he gets a fancy new title, Ambassador to the United Nations, so that's something. Look, this is a very unusual situation to have the Secretary of State dual-hatted as National Security Advisor. We haven't seen it since Henry Kissinger several generations ago. So Marco Rubio is in a very elite club now, and as Mike said, he's entirely up to the task. But the jobs are different. The job of Secretary of State is different from the job of National Security Advisor. If you're the National Security Advisor, your job is to be a neutral, honest broker and present different viewpoints from all the different cabinet level principals to the president. Can you really do that job if you're one of those principals? It would be nice to see this resolved as quickly as possible. And as Mike says, let's staff out the team and get some grade A talent around the president so he has the full range of views he needs to make good decisions.
Ambassador is a pretty cool title, right? Michael, you look at the continued attacks from Russia on Ukrainian civilians. In this effort to negotiate an end to this war, how serious do you think Russia is about ending this war? I mean, is there any way that they're going to stop efforts to having a Ukraine next door that is free, open, and fair?
Well, the attacks that you mentioned overnight speaks to what his intentions are, Putin's intentions are. I think this is what's driving President Trump crazy. And while you've seen Trump through the months express some exasperation with Vladimir Putin, he definitely has been exasperated, in particular over the last 10 days, certainly at the Pope's funeral, all the way through this week. The president's trying to invest his prestige and our national interest into better relations with Russia, but Russia keeps throwing on a bunch of preconditions in order to even get to a ceasefire, which to me was always a prelude to a larger peace negotiations. After all, it's Ukraine who says we're ready to go into a 30-day peace agreement or at least ceasefire instantaneously.
Yeah, and Nathan, you look at what's happening here, and the administration is saying within the next week or so, we're going to know if this is an honest effort or we're going to walk away. After there is a walk away, if that does happen, how does the administration need to respond, and how do you think they'll respond?
Well, they need to put pressure on the party that's responsible for a breakdown in talks. And it's clear that that's Vladimir Putin. Ukraine has been ready for peace for months, for years, in fact. And how has Putin responded? Missiles. More massacres of Ukrainian civilians. And so I think the White House has been very patient with Russia, trying to entice them to the negotiating table, but it isn't working, right? Russia is responding to diplomatic outreach by the United States with more violence and more bloodshed, and that's got to stop. And I think this minerals deal that was just signed is an important step, and it comes at a really important time because it sends a clear signal to Russia: we're invested in Ukraine's future. We have a vested interest in Ukraine remaining sovereign and independent, and we're not going to simply abandon